For us today, I'm Michelle London. Denver 7 News at 5 starts right now.
They actually attacking in our neighborhood and they're making us feel insecure and very unsafe.
Russia unleashes and invades Ukraine. Explosions heard across the country and people frantically fleeing their homes.
I don't want any people to die here in my land.
America stands up to bullies. We stand up for freedom. The United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
President Biden orders thousands more U.S. troops to protect NATO allies and issues new sanctions for Russia.
Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
Coloradans stand up for Ukraine and pray for loved ones still in that country.
Their city is being shelled and they're in hiding.
I don't know how they will survive.
At this hour, at least 57 people are known dead, 170 injured.
Ukraine's health minister has confirmed what we already feared. People are dying in the region as Russia's invasion begins. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us at 5. I'm Ann Trujillo.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. Here's what we know right now. Russians are moving in Ukraine. They've already captured the decommissioned Chernobyl power plant, site, of course, of the world's worst nuclear disaster in '86. Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, under curfew. People encouraged there to remain in their homes. Also, President Biden is mobilizing 7,000 additional U.S. troops to Germany to help NATO allies.
And President Biden also issued new sanctions targeting Russia. And back here in Colorado, Governor Jared Polis is taking actions of his own after joining a local rally at the Capitol steps. Now, tonight, we are going in depth on what's happening across the globe, reactions here in Colorado, and how this invasion can impact you at home.
So we're going to begin with the very latest from ABC News reporter Zoreen Shah.
The Russian military launched more than 100 ballistic and cruise missiles into Ukraine last night. President Biden says with that, President Putin declared his war.
Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically. We will make sure of that.
A senior defense official telling ABC News the president is sending an additional 7,000 troops heading to Germany to reassure NATO allies. President Biden earlier today meeting with his counterparts of the G7, agreeing to move forward on what he calls devastating packages of sanctions and other economic measures to hold Russia to account. This as a minority of the 150,000 Russian troops continue to advance into Ukraine from the east, from Belarus in the north, and from the south in Crimea. Overnight, Russian President Putin declaring the beginning of what he calls a special military operation in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials now reporting Russian troops have reportedly taken full control of the exclusion zone around Chernobyl nuclear power station, including the plant itself. Troops also seizing an airport less than 20 miles away from Ukraine's capital of Kyiv. President Zelensky addressing his people today, saying what we're hearing was the sound of a new Iron Curtain lowering and closing Russia away from the civilized world. He also added that while Ukraine has suffered losses, they are fighting back and have captured some Russian soldiers. Many Ukrainians in several cities are preparing for the uncertainty ahead, lining up to withdraw money from banks and stocking up on gas and other supplies. Western Ukraine and Poland are also bracing for an influx of refugees fleeing the fighting and bombing. President Biden says he has no intention of speaking with President Putin at this moment. He also says he thinks Putin wants to go beyond Ukraine. He says if he goes into NATO countries, the U.S. will get involved, but he says he does not believe that this conflict will last a very long time. Reporting from Washington, Zoreen Shah, ABC News.
I did not sleep the whole night because I was talking with my whole family from my side and from my wife's side.
The emotional, that impacts a lot.
Julia and Dimitro gathered to watch President Biden's speech today from their office inside an Arvada pharmacy. The last time they spoke with their families was Wednesday night, shortly after Russia's invasion began. And since then, they say communications have been non-existent.
Honestly, that's a tragedy that I cannot comprehend. For me, that's unbelievable.
We just try to support you as we can and we pray for you.
They say they are grateful to the U.S. for punishing Russia through sanctions. Both would like to see U.S. troops actually in Ukraine to help.
And today, more than 100 people gathered on the state capitol steps to support Ukrainians still here in the country and here in Colorado specifically. Denver 7's Jason Grenauer takes us there.
though conflict is thousands of miles away. A show of support.
Didn't know there were this many Ukrainians here.
Solidarity.
I really want to support the Ukrainian people from Georgia.
And also protest.
I'm originally from Russia. I strongly condemn the war.
Though the strongest feelings in this crowd were that of concern for family and friends still in Ukraine.
Both my uncles actually are like 55 and 60, and they just re-enlisted into the army. I'm really scared for them and their safety.
They are on the eastern end. Their city is being shelled and they're in hiding.
Stop Russian aggression!
Lana Finkanen says as her parents are literally sheltering in a basement, she came out to do something, anything, for them and her home country.
This is something that we can all control and something that we can gather to come together and show that we are strong and that we are Ukrainian and we are not going anywhere, even all the way over here.
Now, this was on the steps of the state capitol, and it did draw the attention of Governor Polis. He came out, thanked people for coming out, and told supporters that Colorado stands in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Live in the newsroom, I'm Jason Grenauer. Denver 7.
All right, thank you, Jason. And just after that rally, Governor Polis announced punitive actions against Russia from Colorado. He has directed his office to terminate any state contract with a Russian state-owned company. He's also asking for the state's Information Technology Office to focus resources on protecting the state from any possible Russian cyber attack. And the governor adds that he is ready, Colorado is ready, to welcome refugees from Ukraine, and the state is prepared to provide Ukraine with any possible support.
Throughout the week, we've been keeping up with Christoph Steffes. He's a professor of political science at CU Denver and an expert on Russian and European politics. And he told us the sanctions could prove effective down the road in destabilizing Putin's reign. But for now, he says there's little anyone can do to prevent Ukraine's fall.
Obviously, NATO cannot go into Ukraine. That would start World War III. That's out of the question. We cannot even supply weapons anymore at this point. Because how would we get them in? How would we get the Ukrainians trained? This is all way too late. 2014, that was a moment the West should have decided to build up the Ukrainian forces, train them, make them a credible adversary, and it didn't happen.
And Steffes told us President Biden has not been in office long enough to prevent Putin's actions, but said the White House does deserve credit for effectively mobilizing Europe against Russia.
And the invasion certainly has shaken world markets. In a volatile day of trading today, the Dow dropped steeply early in trading, but actually finished with gains after President Biden announced additional sanctions. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ also clawed back from earlier losses to end the day in positive territory.
The president says he is closely monitoring the U.S. energy supplies, but stopped short of saying if the U.S. would increase domestic oil production. Denver 7's Brian Wang is going deeper and joins us live now from Edgewater. And Brian, it's still unclear if prices will jump at the gas station with these new sanctions. Of course, that's not stopping people from filling up early today, right?
That's right. The experts that we spoke to said whenever there's this much uncertainty in those global markets, there's always going to be industry-wide increases in price, especially here at the gas pumps. And that's why we saw a lot of those people come down to the pumps early who told us they just wanted to fill up without knowing what future gas prices will look like.
It's not a question of if, but when you'll see that bump in gas prices.
I guess the unknown is always a little bit like, you know, what you don't know is kind of like, oh, geez.
That's why filling up early was a no-brainer for many in Edgewater Thursday.
That kind of bums me out that, you know, the gas is going to go up.
And here's why experts say war, even thousands of miles away, will also attack your pocketbook.
The market generally doesn't like uncertainty and turmoil.
Especially the kind of turmoil involving an oil and gas powerhouse like Russia.
It's the instability of where are you going to get that product from. For example, Russia produces about 10% of the oil that the world uses, and they produce about 30% of the natural gas that Europe uses. So when you begin to see instability over there, it creates problems throughout the marketplace. Those prices then rise, and we end up having to pay more at the pump and more to heat our homes.
Natural gas prices could also edge up in the coming weeks and months.
Not excited about it, not thrilled.
It's a little bit annoying to have to, fork up a lot of money.
Leading up to the invasion, U.S. gas prices increased about 20 cents within the last month. In Colorado, gas has increased about 6 cents a gallon. The good news here is analysts say Colorado drivers will not see gas prices spike like many other parts of the nation.
We're fortunate that we're able to produce this resource here in Colorado. And when you produce it closer to home, it brings your costs down.
But there will still be increases, a few cents here and there.
I was watching it last night, and it's like as the invasion is happening, you saw it go up, $5 a barrel.
And that's likely to increase too. We've been outside of the Edgewater, King Soopers gas station here in Edgewater for a good part of the afternoon. Prices have actually remained the same throughout the afternoon, but the experts that we spoke to said if you don't see an increase in the coming days, expect them down the line. We're live in Edgewater. Bayan Wang, Denver 7.
All right, thanks, Bayan. Now, President Biden says NATO will convene talks tomorrow to discuss any further actions against Russia. And we are closely monitoring what's happening in Ukraine here at Denver 7. We'll bring you the very latest on air and on the denverchannel.com. Also, you can always get up-to-date information on our free Denver 7 Plus app.
The priority deadline for college financial aid is fast approaching, and that is why tonight these counselors from the Denver Scholarship Foundation are joining us to answer your questions about federal and state financial aid applications.
The CASPA, which is the Colorado Application for Student Financial Aid, actually opened about 2 years ago, and it's specifically for students that are undocumented or have DACA status. It asks the same information as the FAFSA. In fact, the questions are mirrored almost exactly from that application, but it is specifically for students that do not have a Social Security number.
So if you have any kind of a question about financial aid, the number to call is 303-777-7492, and counselors will be taking your calls until 6:30 tonight.
Temperatures bounce back a little bit today, but wait till you see what happens by early next week.
Highlighting Black history in Colorado.
He was the first African-American professor at CU Boulder.
The Museum of Boulder has a new exhibit in the works, bringing Black voices front and center.
It really is a project that's about listening, identifying the stories.
And downtown Denver remains a little quieter during the week. A new survey reveals more than half of downtown workers are now choosing to work from home.
I don't think we know what a commute is anymore.